As a added bonus to our virtual house tour, we are lucky to have with us Earl Grondike. Earl, besides having lived in this area and his family for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years, has been very active in the community and historical society, cemetery association, Lions Club, Masons. I just can't list them all. And besides that, he's actually a pretty good stonemason, that is, and brick mason, as well as a Masonic mason. Known him for years. One of his additional passions, besides his work and his family and all the involvement he has in the community, is old cars, in particular Dodge cars. So he has two beautiful Dodges here that he's going to show you, and he's also going to tell you a lot about the Dodge family and the Dodge cars.
Good day. As Cappy has mentioned, my name is Earl Grondike, and I have a couple antique cars. The Hightstown East Windsor Historical Society has always put a car of antique age in front of each house on their house tour, which made it quite unique. This is a 1916 Dodge Brothers. There was two brothers that started the company, John and Horace. They were born in Niles, Michigan. John, the older one, about 4 years older than Horace, got a job in a foundry. And while he was working there, he sort of breathed too much of the stuff in there and got like a mild case of emphysema. They're both very talented machinists in their own right. They started with a guy in Windsor, Ontario, manufacturing bicycles, but they really wanted to work on automobiles and start their own company, making parts for different automobiles. A guy named Ransom Olds was making automobile, electric, and gas, but he had a factory fire. The workers managed to push out one car that was a gasoline model. Mr. Olds knew that if he was going to stay in business, he had to sub out someone to work. The Dodge brothers got to build the transmissions for the curved dash Olds. But it also caught the eye of a guy that you probably heard of, Henry Ford. And it wasn't long after that, Henry had them working for him, making parts for his cars, starting around 1903 or so. They were in partners, but they had their own separate company making parts, because they had the foundry to make the castings. Sometimes Henry didn't have the money, so they got some stock, and they kept their stock. In fact, when they started their own company, they did not sell the stock, and they were making like $1 million a year on dividends from those Model Ts. The Dodge brothers gave their notice in 1913, a year's notice. So in 1914, they started their own company, and they came out with a car very similar to this. Not much change. In 1914, they produced about 350 cars that year. It's amazing how they did it, because they were, at the last minute, they were trying to figure out who was going to do what and what company was going to build this or that. They were very close. The brothers were very, very close. When John Dodge got a job, he said, "You have to take my brother also." Unfortunately, they were short-lived. They went to the New York Auto Show in January of 1920. John got the Spanish flu, kind of like today's COVID, and he passed away in New York. His brother never really recovered. He was sick most of the year. He died that December. So they started the company in 1914. By 1920, they both had died. It was in different receivership and different companies, and finally it was sold to a holding company, and that was the largest sale of any company at the time in the United States. Made both of their widows very rich. That's a little bit of history about the Dodge brothers and this car. There's not much change as far as the outside, very little. Later on in 16, they expanded the wheelbase, and they covered all this up in here with splash pans. On the front is the Dodge Brothers insignia, Dodge Brothers, Detroit, USA, with the DB interlocking. Also, there's interlocking triangle. A lot of people think it's the Star of David, but it's interlocking triangles. Greek alphabet, Alpha and Omega, the beginning and the ending, that's what that stands for. And behind that, in the backdrop, is a picture of the planet. They knew when they started that they wanted to be worldwide. This is a touring car, which is just like you see it. 4 doors, top is back up and down. The only other model they had was a Roadster, which was a 2-door car, with a little trunk in the back. As you can tell, it's probably hard to heat. They would heat the back seat with this device, and this would slide out, and you put coal in there, and it would warm your feet. Also, this is another form of heater, which is a motor heater. You would fill this up with kerosene, you would light this, stick it in your engine compartment, and that would keep your engine warm at night when it was really, really cold. But a lot of times what they would do back at this particular area, when it was that cold, they would put the cars in the barn and take the horse and sleigh out. This is what they call a semaphore. This, if you remember your hand signals, this was to stop, and this was you were making a turn. I've seen other ones that there was a fourth one that would swing all the way up to signify you were making a right turn, but this one does not do it. And this was patent March 15th, 1921. This is my other car, a 1936 Dodge Brothers touring sedan. As I mentioned in the 16, that was a touring car. This is a touring sedan. And the reason why it's a touring sedan is it has a little bit of a trunk in the back, which I'll show you later. If you just bought a four-door sedan, it would have went straight down the back and the spare tire would be mounted where the trunk would be. A little history. My father was born in April. His father died that same December, and his mother died a few years later. His father had a lot of sisters, and they raised him. And one of the sisters married a man by the name of Barton Francis, who had the Dodge dealership on Nottingham Way up in Hamilton Square from 1932 to 1972. One of the salesmen there, Joe Zazzo, his mother had a car for sale. My father bought it, which was this car. My father bought it, stuck it down the barn in Clarksburg, and didn't do anything with it. And when he passed away in '85, I told my mother I'd like to have the car, but I'd like to buy it. So I bought the car, and then I had it restored. I brought it out and didn't want to run. Tom Getty went down, got it running in just a couple minutes, and drove it pretty much the first year the way it was. Had it repainted, the upholstery redone, and then a few years later I got a little tired, so I rebuilt the engine. Basically today, the metallurgy is better. We make things finer, different metals, all kinds of different metals now, and also computers. It's the only difference really. Still comes internal combustion engine, burns on gasoline. Of course, they're coming out with electric cars and things, but we'll see. They had a lot of electric cars back in the teens, electric and steam, also gas. In fact, gas was the number 3 behind electric and steam. This is, like I said, is a four-door sedan. It's a lot more comfortable. It has springs and shock absorbers. That does not have shock absorbers, just the springs. This is the original color. It was called Dolphin Gray. It's the same as a gunmetal, but the gunmetal had more blue. This has more green in it. These are fender guides. These light up. If you parked out on the street, and they put them on at night. These are not original. They had the parking light inside of this. One of the big things back in '36 was fuel economy. They came up with this. The owner saving up to 5 or 6 barrels of gas a year with a Dodge. One of the signs they would have in the showroom is this sign. As you can see, they started at $640, which was probably a lot of money back at the time. There were some options. The most expensive option was the radio, and that was $49. Chris and I, my wife and I, toured quite a bit with this car. We usually do a Dodge Brothers meet every year, and we've gone to as far away as Missouri, Traverse City, Michigan, Seven Springs, Pennsylvania. So we travel quite a bit with that one. We also tour with the 16 quite a bit lately anyway. One of the annual events is a Glidden tour, which is a tour for cars 42 and older. I've done 2 of those, one in Saratoga Springs and the other one I did in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. This year's Glidden tour is in Princeton, so we plan on taking the 16 for that, and so that can get a little dash box, which you'll see. Again, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this as much as I enjoyed presenting it to you. Thank you.